Vancouver, British Columbia, 24 hours post Canada's 6-0 gargantuan statement that they sent across the FIFA World Cup, defeating Qatar in Group B play. This is Bet365 for the win. A beautiful home for the beautiful game. And speaking of beautiful, Jimmy Brennan on the broadcast today, my partner in crime. Gareth Wheeler is here as well. I'd put him in that category. And Adam Jenkins trying to hold down the fort between these two unruly gentlemen. Jimmy, how are you feeling the day after one of the most historic victories, historic days in general for this men's national team program?
Oh, great. I woke up with a smile on my face this morning, Jenkins. I think it was a wonderful moment. It was a match that I think everybody that I was talking to anyways, was saying, you know, we should beat this. We should beat, or we should win this game. And at least it'd be 2-0 or 3-0. But to win the match 6-0 against Qatar is a remarkable performance. And you see a lot of people as well when they were saying, oh, yeah, but they're not a great team. Yeah, but Canada didn't allow them to be a good team. Canada was in their face the whole match for 90 minutes. There was no passengers. They had an agenda. They knew what they wanted. And they suffocated Qatar. And they were rewarded with the 6 goals that they got. And I thought every single player was brilliant throughout that match. And it was a moment I think everybody can be proud of, and recognize all the hard work in generations past of trying to build this program, and to finally see our national team step on the pitch, score 6 goals in a World Cup at home in front of 50-odd thousand Canadians was truly a defining moment for this national team in this country.
On our post-game show last night, I mean, there's a lot of emotions, like real positive emotions coming out of last night. And then you wake up this morning, Jimmy, you woke up with a smile on your face. I woke up saying, did that really happen? Like, so much happened, not only over the course of 90 minutes, but in the build up to the match, after the game. And it just seemed like more than just a game of football itself. It seemed like something bigger. Something bigger was at play. Just the reaction of people, millions of people watching across this country, the team fighting through a little bit of adversity. But overall, the one prevalent train of thought or thing that came out of the game was how dominant Canada were. It's not just us in this country noticing as well, and it's not just Canadian bias, which we have to a certain degree, because we care about this team, we care about this country. But I feel like a result and performance like that, it puts the world on notice. And I think today, when you're seeing the pundits and different people comment about what they witnessed last night, yeah, sure, Qatar was miserable. That was a sub story. But the main story, the main headline was Canada's style of play, the way that they blanketed Qatar, and the way they delivered a historic and record setting performance. And that brings a lot of pride to a program that's either been forgotten or much maligned over the years. So I think that this just continues putting this program, putting the football in this country, continues to put it in the proper direction. And there's a lot to be proud of, starting with the players on the field. They executed, they brought the intensity, and they didn't give Qatar a sniff last night. It was so impressive what they were able to accomplish.
You're right, Wheels. And then, you know, when we watched Qatar the first match against Switzerland, and we were like, these guys are defensively sound. They're organized. You know, they had a professional performance in my eyes, Qatar, in that match against Switzerland, where people kind of went, hey, this is not going to be an easy match. Let's not count these guys out just yet. But what I did love is that we didn't allow them to get going or get any kind of momentum in this match. And for me, being that dominant for 90 minutes, that's not only physical, that is mental. Mentally clued in, zoned in on the task at hand. And let's not forget as well about the fans that are in that stadium. They play a massive, massive role. That is the 12th man. They're the ones that push those players forward. They're the ones, when the players are standing, when the referee blows a whistle, and have a little look around and go, I can't believe I'm standing on this pitch right now in front of 50,000 Canadians cheering us on here. And we're going to do this for you guys. And they did. Yeah. 6 goals was remarkable.
We experienced some of that in the qualifying campaign up to Qatar in 2022. Well, like we started to feel it for the first time, but now this seems like the new normal, which is a great thing for this program. And Jimmy, like, you've seen it before. Oftentimes Canada is played down to their opponent. whether it was Guatemala last year in the Gold Cup, and we've seen it from time to time. That simply wasn't the case. Canada were vastly superior. And what we do know about Canada as we watched the tournament, I mean, Qatar, Switzerland were a little bit different. It was played at midday in like 90-degree heat in San Francisco, and the conditions played a big role in that game. But Canada, the intensity that they play with and the legs that they have in their team, not every team in this tournament, very few of them actually want to play that way. And I think that they can make life very uncomfortable for future opponents who will all be better than Qatar and Bosnia and Herzegovina. But still, Canada's style is true. It's going to be difficult to play against, and it's not going to change based upon opponents. Like what you see is what you get when it comes to Canada. It'll be much more difficult against proper footballing playing sides, but still, this is a blueprint and potential recipe for success because the players have bought in, Jimmy, and they continue to execute. Like the players are the ones that are driving this forward, and that's what I'm so impressed by.
Yeah. One thing I really liked as well is, we always say like this high octane where it's go, go, go. They press, they look to win the ball. And you're right. Playing in that stadium does help as well. I mean, if you were playing at midday and 90 odd degrees weather and it's humid, yeah, it does play a toll. It does. It catches up to you real quick. But I liked how there was moments in the match where they kind of said, you know what? We can't keep going. We need a little spell here where we got to control. And we got to control this game, which means we just got to get a ball and we got to move it. The ball doesn't sweat. So let's pass this ball. Let's get a little breather and then let's get it out again. And there was moments throughout the match where I was just watching them knock the ball, just keeping possession. I was like, well done, lads. Like they're thinking, you're controlling this match now. It's not always go 100 miles an hour. It was good football. It was a great brand. And it truly is a Canadian brand that we witnessed last night in that match.
Well, the 12th man inside BC Place, and certainly thousands upon thousands more at Canada Soccer House taking in the match. That's where Mackenzie Barwell was yesterday. And today, powered by General Mills, live on location for One Soccer, Mac at Canada training the day after a huge win.
Well, I just finished watching the first 15 minutes of training here at UBC. It's match day +1 for the Canadian men's national team following their first ever World Cup win, 6-0 over Qatar. We also heard from head coach Jesse Marsh as well as goalkeeper Maxime Crepeau. This morning, the vibes and the energy were, of course, very positive, but at the same time, some mixed emotions hearing about Ismail Kone's injury.
He had a tib-fib fracture, but they did the surgery last night. Similar to the Tejan and Moise surgery, and the doctor said it went perfectly, and Moise has already been up this morning, and Ismail's already been up this morning, and he sent a video message to the guys, so and he was in good spirits, so everything's gone well as it could be right now. So
injuries have obviously continued to play a big part in this team's World Cup journey. Jesse was also asked what his approach has been in deciding whether to utilize Alphonso Davies and Moise Bombito both yesterday and going forward.
There wasn't a reason to risk anything, so I think that was a good element of how the match went, is both that we could give Alphonso a little bit more time and that we could get Moise on the pitch, right, for 45 minutes. I think that was a big development as well. So we're going to have a little training session today and try to push some of the guys in that way to make sure that whoever we call in for Switzerland is ready.
So the team is looking incredibly confident heading into their final match of the group stage. Switzerland also having 1 win and 1 draw. Here's Crepeau on what they're expecting from that match on the 24th.
You see that Switzerland is a very good organized European side, quality players as well. We respect them in their football, and it will look like more like a game that we played in Holland and France, that type of football. And obviously they have a fantastic team. I didn't see their game and their goals and everything, but I think it will be a great football game where both teams can hurt one another.
So Canada will either have to draw or beat Switzerland in order to stay at the top of Group B, which will absolutely be a priority so that they can stay in Vancouver at home for the knockout stages.
Mackenzie, thank you. Yes, there's no doubt that one of the big stories, probably the only down, and what a down it was from yesterday, was Ismail Kone. Jesse Marsh providing an update. Kone himself posting today, this morning on Instagram, a beautiful message, very heartfelt, where he's joking around with his teammates about becoming an assistant coach. And I want to read just the last part of it where he said, I'll be back very soon. We'll keep making memories together. What you guys did yesterday will stay with me forever. Obviously, a player who has undergone a successful surgery, probably experiencing, Jimmy, every single emotion an athlete can certainly go through. And then we have the responsibility to talk about what happened with Ismail Kone. I think as you've spoken to numerous people, Jimmy in particular, as a former player, there is a question: what happened? Was it dirty? Was it vicious? Everything going in for people trying to understand how someone can break their tibia and their fibula in a freak accident like that was. What were your, I suppose, thoughts on the actual tackle and how it's been handled by Ismail, his teammates, and really this entire country at large?
Watching the match, and I seen the Qatari player come from behind. Um, the ball gets played, Kone goes down, and the Qatari player continues going forward like nothing happened, right? And I'm looking at it going, I wonder what happened here. He must have just nicked him or just caught him. And then when he held up his leg, I'm standing with Forrest and a few other people, and we're having a chat, and we're just like, there's no way that he broke his leg. How is that even possible? And when you look at it closely, it wasn't malicious. The player wasn't out to go through him and harm him in any way. And it was more or less just a freak accident that happened. I think when he planted his foot and as he was striking the ball, maybe the force of his weight on that leg, and the guy was just coming through, just trying to nick the ball from behind. But it did not look dangerous to me whatsoever. It really didn't. It looked like a freak accident. And I looked back and I watched numerous times the replays, and you could even see the player, the Qatari player, his hands was on his head because he couldn't believe it. He was like, I can't believe this has happened. And when you're professional football, any kind of football at any level, you don't go out to intend to hurt people, right? You respect the game, you play hard. It's the last thing that's on your mind, especially in the World Cup. And for that to happen, it was so sad to see. I think everybody in the country could just feel the emotions that Kone's going through, and we feel so heartbroken for him and wish him nothing but the best. But it really was a freak accident, in my opinion.
Yeah, Kone was surprised. Like the look on Kone's, he couldn't believe it, and it was just because the player was late. And I said it last night. I'll say it again. Like Haiti couldn't play at the pace that Canada was. Everything was late. That's when they were getting in troubles. I don't think that they were that anything to do with them was malicious at all. Just their timing was all off because there were a step or two too slow in that match. And that's where the troubles between Lopetegui and Marsh played out, because the Qatari bench was saying, well, that's not a sending off. And then the Canadian bench took exception to that at that moment because their player had just broken their leg. And I'm actually, this sounds like a little un-Canadian here, but I'm a little bit surprised that the player got sent off in that moment. I think that the referee had kind of reacted to the devastation of the injury at that time, which was heartbreaking for anyone involved. In fairness, I didn't think that there was much in the first sending off either for Qatar. Again, the player wrong side, late, bad positioning. It wasn't too much contact between him and Tejan Buchanan. So look, Qatar was going to be played off the pitch. They were going to lose that game if it was 11v11, if it was 11v9. Like it just, that they weren't up to the pace of the game. Canada were on it. It's a freak injury, like an absolute freak injury. And the fact that, I don't care if it's like an NBA finals, a Stanley Cup finals, a Super Bowl, players get hurt, but it was the nature of that injury that's left such an impact on the team and everyone else. When you see a leg go like that, like, man, it just wasn't a Roy Keane and Holland moment, right? Where there's like intent to injure.
No, it wasn't.
That was just really unlucky for the young man. And now the team is going to use that for yet another reason to galvanize the group going forward. And Jesse Marsh has some decisions to make. Nathan Saliba is certainly the player that looks to come in, but does he experiment and think about adding a little bit more to the midfield, especially if you're playing with teams with three midfielders? Because Canada, with all with all due respect to Saliba and Chouanier and Osorio and whoever else he might put in, none of them are the profile of Ismail Kone. None of them are. Kone does things in the middle of the park that these players don't. They bring other qualities, really good qualities to the table, but none of them do what Ismail Kone does.
Well, I think one of my favorite moments of commentary from Luke Wildman and Stephen Caldwell yesterday is when they were mentioning that they could see Alphonso Davies on the touchline in the staff's ears saying, look, it's basically a scrimmage. I'm not going to get hurt, but boy, do I want in on whatever the heck we watch for the final 15 to 20 minutes as Canada were going for goals, goals, and more goals. Ultimately, though, Gareth, we do not see Alphonso Davies make his World Cup debut against the Swiss. He's an unused substitute. And of course, Jesse Marsch was asked about it. Was there a setback? Was this always the plan? But look, there's a million things for Jesse Marsch to juggle. And from everything I've heard and read, it just seemed like the risk wasn't worth the reward.
No chance. Absolutely no chance. It probably wasn't worth the risk, even if Ismail Kone wasn't injured that way, but that if there was any thought process of Davies going in, I mean, that ended that thought process entirely. I said in the build up to the match, I'll be surprised if Davies plays. I think it's good news, reason for optimism that he is part of a match day squad, but I still think it's a little bit of a reach. Not just because he hasn't played since May 6th, it's the recurring nature of these hamstring injuries. That's the problem going forward, and that's why the player needs to be protected more so than anything else. I think that the mindset going into the World Cup was that Davies wasn't going to feature in the group stage. And that tells me anything that you can get out of Davies at this World Cup is an absolute bonus. He's not going to be a focal point of this team. The team needs to rely on healthy, fit players that are capable of playing with the requisite intensity and fearlessness and speed. Right now, I want to see Davies in. I just don't think it's going to happen. If it does, it'll be very limited in nature. And I think it's smart to give him till at least next week. We'll see how the Switzerland game goes. And then the round of 32, that seems like a game that you want to roll the dice potentially a little bit more. That would be 6-7 weeks out since his last injury. And that timeline makes a little bit more sense to me, just to ensure that he's in the best condition possible and that his hamstring is completely healed and is in a good place.
Me personally, I think against Switzerland, he's got to play. I would be looking to play 20 minutes, maybe even 30. And the reason being is because if we know that we're through to the round of 32, and then you want to test them there and say, okay, you look good, everything's fine. You sub him in, for instance, in a match, and he breaks down. We got to sub him back out. You can't play those games in round of 32 because you got one shot at it. Group stage, you got 3 games. So, in my opinion, going into the Switzerland match, play him, test him out, let him open up his legs, get at it, and work on that acceleration, see how he comes out. How does he handle that? 20 minutes, no problems. Okay, so now we're good. Now we're going to the 32. We know he can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That would be my way of doing it because I don't think going into the next round we can risk anything. And if you have to make 2 subs on one player that gets injured, well, that might just jeopardize your opportunity of winning that game and moving on to the next round.
It's certainly going to be a fascinating storyline to continue to monitor how much, if at all, we see Alphonso Davies against the Swiss. And Gareth, I suppose it's different but similar with Luc de Fougerolles and Moise Bombito. We did see Moise Bombito play the entire second half, encouraging signs. Luc de Fougerolles has been an absolute monster at the position, and if not for a yellow card, maybe we're not seeing Bombito get those 45 minutes. How much might Jesse Marsch be tempted to tinker, knowing that he can get at least 45 out of Bombito, and then he has to balance how good LDF and Cornelius have been together?
He might be tempted to tinker, but don't be tempted. Just swerve that temptation at all costs, because I think you have to roll with the Fougerolles and Cornelius. Look, they haven't truly been tested. The strike pairing for Bosnia and Herzegovina, Demirovic is an okay player, didn't get any service, did have one chance that he was straight on through. Qatar offered nothing, absolutely nothing in attack. That's why Jesse Marsch could bring in Moise Bombito, but I'm not sure how much we learned. It was good for him to get a run in, but it was a glorified scrimmage at that point. where all the hard work was being done in front of Moise Pompito. Like Max Crepeau could have been playing center back, and it wouldn't have really mattered at that point. So it was good to see Moise get that World Cup experience, but you got to roll with Defougerol and Cornelius right now because bigger tests are upcoming. Breel Mbolo is a handful for Switzerland, and the Swiss attack have players that are far superior than anything that they've faced thus far. So continuity is king right now. Good for Bombito, but you got to stick with Defougerol and Cornelius at this point.
Jimmy, do you agree?
Yeah, I think you start because it would be really unfair on Luke as well, and I think Luke's been absolutely terrific, hasn't he, over the last number of games? For a young player at his age, the maturity that he's showing is it's quite unreal to see for a young kid in a World Cup. But at the same time, I would imagine, depending on how the game is going, I'd expect Bombito as well to get in at some point, whether he maybe does it at halftime or not. Now, look, and Gaza's right, and Mbolo's a terrific player. You got Nadoya as well on the right, who likes to drift inside. You got Vargas, who wants to come inside. Like they've got some players that can play football and good movement that are quick. So if this will be a test, not like the other two, for our center backs in this match. So I think the game will dictate how it's gonna roll out and when and what stage Bombito comes in. Because you got to think, as every round you go forward and forward, the strikers get better and better and better and better, and they get quicker and quicker and quicker. So there's got to be a point where Bombito's got to be 100% ready to play 90 minutes. Because if you do get to 32 and you get to the 16, you're going to need him.
Well, the matches do not get easier. The opponents continue to get more difficult, and Canada will hoping to continue to gradually ease into this tournament with some of their ailing players, but encouraging signs across the board for Canada with one major 24-year-old exception, Ismail Kone.